But today we have a government filled with TV personalities, podcasters, and a Department of Defense secretary who thinks this is his General Patton moment. Hey guys, welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. I'm Denise, and I'm here with Neil. Today is March 15th, 2026. And we are more than 2 weeks into, I don't know, it looks like they're now using the word war with Iran. No, it's not a war. It's a police action. What do you think?
Police action. Let's call it a police action. That way people will remember, hopefully, the days of Vietnam and realize what a folly this actually was.
Yeah, I agree. There is so much going on in the world today. So we're going to try and take each topic and sort of drill down as much as we can to let you know things that are going on and some things you might not know about. With regard to this war, if you follow Large Man Abroad, he's a veteran, and he put out a video that kind of laid out one of the main reason why attacking Iran was such a risk, and that what is happening right now is what could happen and what could get worse. And one of the points is that the Strait of Hormuz is located in a very tiny corridor, and on one side you have a mountainous region in Iran that sort of overlooks this area. And the Iranians have spent the last 40 years preparing for this moment, and they have dug into those mountains. And what he was saying is that they are dug in as far as 500 feet underground. So they can take a pounding from all those bunker busting bombs that we drop on them. And he even said that if we dropped a nuke, it might not even harm them. So this is posing a lot of problems. What do you think, Neil?
Well, so I was reading this morning that the U.S. a few years ago had conducted war games, all right, a war game simulation, all right, where they separated the U.S. Army basically into two, red and blue team. And the blue team was obviously the U.S. and the red team was, what they considered to be a Middle Eastern country, right? And basically Iran. And it was supposed to be a 14-day simulated war game. Okay, they put one of their top generals in charge of the red team, top generals in charge of the blue team, and it was the war games were over in one day. Right.
Really?
So you want to guess who won?
Oh,
you want to guess who won that simulation?
The
Right?
red team?
The red team won. Yeah, the red team won. Apparently, the red team used tactics that, believe it or not, the Iranians are using today. Small boats, more more of what they call alternative military strategies, right?
Drones. In this case, drones.
Right, drone, right, yeah. So apparently the U.S. lost in a day, and then, being embarrassed, and the U.S. military being what it is, right, decided, you know what, we're going to do this for 14 days, and they basically said, we're going to start over, and we're going to change all the rules. And that's what they did. They started over and changed all the rules, and basically were like, we're going to change the rules so that the blue team wins. And I don't understand. This gets me to.
How do you learn anything from that?
Well, it's all meant to portray U.S. might, military might, right? And again, it goes to, we've been spending trillions of dollars a year on our military, right? On our defense for this country. Okay. going around telling everybody we have the greatest military in all the world, and it's the most expensive, and we've done this and we've done that. And what we're seeing is we're getting beat by drones. The world has changed, warfare has changed, and we didn't keep up. We decided that we were still in a Cold War mentality. We had all these sunk costs, okay? And you had a DOD that had an inability to change midstream, which is what we see from large institutions, right, in our government, is that they get bogged down with these contracts, and then they can't change tactics. They can't change the way they do things.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
So it's interesting, and why they didn't prepare for this. I mean, okay, today I can see that being a problem, right? Because we used to have we used to have experts and advisors and tactical generals with decades of experience, of wartime experience, to advise the president and other leaders to, whether or not going to war or starting a police action is going to be successful or not. But today we have a government filled with TV personalities, podcasters, and a Department of Defense secretary who thinks this is his General Patton moment with all these ridiculous speeches. But he did say something in a recent speech that has me incredibly concerned. He pointed to the fact that we are no longer defenders; we are now warriors, which basically says that we are aggressors, and that the silly little rules of engagement don't apply. Those and they've been actively all along since the inception of this administration removing the guardrails that guide the rules of engagement in battle. Things like we don't target civilians, we target military. We take out military targets, and that seems to be thrown to the wayside. And he's rah rah cheering that on. Like, I don't see the honor in dropping bombs on schools. There's been more schools that have been hit. There've been hospitals that have been hit. There we've got oil
Oh,
yeah, I know. I know.
no, it's this shit that you learn in school. Honor, we're not going to target kids. These guardrails. They've always been artificial guardrails. They're basically put in place by but what we've seen, and we've seen this, right? Like, we can go all the way back to Reagan. We can go all the way back to the Vietnam War, where conveniently we decide to remove those guardrails. Okay, politicians decide to remove those guardrails, and then what do? They turn around and blame the military. Okay, we've seen this before. Okay, we're seeing it now and live, right? The politicians, anytime that there is something that goes wrong, right, they blame somebody else. They
Oh, yeah.
blame ICE. They blame, the military. They blame Christy
You
Nome. They blame,
this is
right? There's always somebody to blame other than them. Okay, all right, and here's the thing: we as the public, we as bloggers, we as podcasters, we as writers, reporters, we need to stop blaming everybody else, right? We need to stop that. That needs to end. We should stop listening to these talking heads that tell us to blame somebody else. The fact is there is nobody else to blame but these politicians. There is nobody else to blame but Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, right? John Thune, MAGA Mike Johnson, right? And Donald Trump and his minions in the cabinet. There is nobody else to blame. That is it. Everything that's happening with ICE, everything that's happening with our military, everything that's happening with this war comes from those people.
exactly.
period.
Well, see, that's I guess the point that I'm making is I know we've done these things before. Let's talk about the Iraq war and the things we did to civilians there. But now we have a defense secretary or secretary of war, whatever the fuck he wants to call himself, who's out there rah-rah cheering it on and not doing any blaming. Oh no, we want to target these people. And
Just being honest.
I guess I don't know if it's
Just being
honest.
honest.
Is it
Yeah,
honesty or
being honest.
glorifying
Yeah.
it? But he's glorifying it. And
They always glorified it. They always glorified it. They glorified it until they got caught, and then they blamed. They took credit for the good stuff, and then they blamed for the bad stuff. They've always done that,
mm,
right? We've just now found ourselves in a position where we were really we the planning was terrible. Okay, you now and you clearly don't have the intellectual capacity, right? Not you, but the administration,
the
right?
administration. Yeah.
Clearly doesn't have the intellectual capacity to manage, right, complex levels of diplomacy, complex levels of war, complex levels of economics, right? Like, no offense, but you know, listening to experts is not a detriment. It is not a sign of weakness. Experts can help you in a lot of different ways. Okay. Like if you want to redo your roof, okay, your roof, you're not going to go up to your roof and just start pulling shingles and knocking everything
Right.
down and doing that yourself. You're going to go out and hire an expert roofer.
There you
Okay?
go.
That's what you're going to do. If you're going to do some plumbing in your house, yeah, you may watch a YouTube thing, but I guarantee you're going to fuck it up and you're going to
Yes.
need at some point in time to hire an expert unless you're good at those sort of things. But for most people, you go out and you hire experts.
And
Okay?
and they're all gone. They got rid of the
And they're all
experts,
gone.
and they've
Yes.
got all these incompetent shills just sitting in here making decisions that are impacting every person in this country. All these
Right.
decisions, and how do you feel about that, folks? They just deployed what 2,500 Marines to the region.
5,000.
It's now 5,000. Wow,
Yes.
everything changes in a day, and
Right.
as large man abroad had pointed out, he said this is like sending lambs to the slaughter. You're not ready. These people have been preparing for this for 40 years, and we've been just building up our big bombs and saying we're just great. I mean, look at how long we spent in Iraq, and we had support from our NATO allies. Now we don't have that. And now that kind of has me move on to another part of this whole saga is that we might not have the ally that we're in this battle with. There is a rumor going around the internet, it's all over the internet, that Netanyahu may have been killed. There was a what appears to clearly be a video of him having a speech. It was his last speech, and he's got 6 fingers on one hand and, clear signs of deep fakes that we've talked about here on this podcast in the past, and we're seeing this. And, he hasn't appeared. He was very, very visual before, and now in the last few days, he's kinda disappeared from sight.
A few days. It's been like a week now.
A week? Yeah. So what
Yeah,
do you
it's been like
think?
a week now. Yeah, I listen. I think we're in this alone. I think we've always been in this alone. I don't think anybody. They not only has Iran been preparing for 40 years. Okay, every country in the world, okay, has modeled the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, right? Because it's such a vital transportation hub, right, of the world. Every country has modeled it, right? We are talking that can be closed for 3 weeks before the world goes into a deep, deep, deep recession. Okay? Okay? It's now been almost 2 weeks. We're
Yeah.
just short of 2 weeks. I believe we're at 10 days now,
No, no,
okay?
it's over 2 weeks. We started on February 28th, it's the 15th. So where you are,
Okay.
there you go. So we're 15 days
Well,
into this.
they've modeled 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? And basically what you're seeing now is every ship from every nation is headed to the Strait of Hormuz, right? Not to be allies of the United States, but to open up the shipping lanes, okay? They need to open up those shipping lanes, okay? And you're going to send that many countries and that many naval ships to a region that that is absolutely hostile right now. What do you think is gonna happen? It's gonna be a tinderbox. It's gonna go up in flames,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
You're
yeah.
talking about false flags. You're talking about military operations. You're talking about combustibility that you couldn't even imagine on a scale that you don't want. Nobody wants.
Yeah,
It's gonna
yeah,
be bad. It's gonna be bad.
yeah, and, it's interesting because, Trump and his big mouth, Great Britain had offered to send support vessels last week, and Trump came out and made a statement on his fake social that, "We don't need your help offering, because you're offering to help us after we've won the war." And the war wasn't won, and now a week later, he put up a Truth Social post, basically in no uncertain terms, begging for help. And if I
Yep.
can, I'll post this stuff just so you could see it.
Oh yeah, he was not only begging for help, he begged Canada to help. Canada was talking about sending, obviously because they want to open up the strait, talking about sending some vessels out there to help open up the strait. And then what does Trump do? He goes out and he threatens Canada again, saying that they should be the 51st state, right? Like, I mean, you really just can't make this shit up. You really just can't make this shit up. He's threatening Cuba. He's threatening Venezuela. Still, we're still threatening Greenland. Like, I
Don't
mean,
forget Ecuador.
are we gonna have any allies at the end of this thing? Like, people don't like these the these MAGA people, they just wanna burn down the world.
Yeah,
This is a death cult that wants to burn down the world. Everything that they claim to believe in and how they wrap themselves in the flag and they talk about our veterans, they could give two shits about any of that stuff, right? And they've proven it in every fucking way by everything that this administration has done.
yeah,
They've proven it. They've proven that they are completely and utterly full of shit. And every time I see one of them wearing an American flag, I just want to walk up to them and say, take that fucking thing off. You don't deserve to wear it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's stunning, right? Everything that Trump campaigned on, he has reversed. Literally done the opposite, complete opposite, and they're still with him. That right there is identity politics because you don't have, right? You, being a Republican or being a Democrat, or you have a certain set of principles that you believe in, and you look for leaders that agree with those principles. But that's not the case. You agree with the principles of your leader, whatever they turn to be, whether it's we're going to be the president of peace and then turns around and starts World War III, we're going to be the World War III. We're going to be the World War III president. You're okay with that. This is why we say you're in a cult, because that is cult-like behavior when you identify with what the leader wants and what the leader desires, and you don't have any principles of your own that you could stand by. Because if you really believed in world peace, you would be, just like the rest of us, screaming and pulling our hair out about what's happening. And the idea that we are now sending 5,000 Marines to possibly their death or maiming or losing limbs. And trust me, they are ready in Iran for this, and we are not prepared. Everybody has said this. Our allies have said this. Our, our adversaries have said this, that we are not prepared for this. And the fact that Trump has gone from "We don't need anybody's help" to "Please come and help us," just confirms that for me anyway, that we're in trouble and this is not ending anytime soon.
He just doesn't know how to the issue is that everybody in this administration. So let me let me take everybody back, right? You know, we may not have thought that Donald Rumsfeld and George W. maybe not George W. Bush, but Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, right? Those guys who administered the first Iraq war were three-dimensional thinkers, right? We may not have thought they were. We may have thought that what they were doing was foolhardy, but at the end of the day, they were very bright people. Okay, they listen. Agree with them or don't agree with them, I don't care, right? They were really smart people, okay? They really, like, they went out, they made sure that they talked with experts. Were they wrong? Yes, they were wrong in a lot of ways. That was really the start of the propaganda era,
Yes,
right?
it was.
Right, where they started putting out the propaganda, but they figured that they could win, right? Because they were looking at everything from a three-dimensional standpoint and they had their allies by their side. Okay? Right? So from their standpoint, they were good. Okay? Trump demolished all that. Trump and his team, Hegseth, those guys, they're like one-dimensional, maybe even two-dimensional thinkers. Like, they don't think on that level. I mean, there are people, this has been modeled. This
Yeah,
has been
I know.
modeled for like 50 years. This has been modeled. There's a reason why for 50 years nobody attacked Iran, because of the fact that the US did their coup in the 50s when they took power, when Iran took power again in the 70s, in the late 70s. They had been modeling this exact scenario. They knew at some point in time they were going to be invaded. So they had been planning this for the last 50 fucking years
And here we are.
with nothing else in their mind. We have not. We have not been planning this. And whatever plans that we did, we lost every single time. Every model, every war model that we did, we lost. Okay? So, and the world knew this because everybody in the world actually modeled this. Every country in the world modeled this because the Strait of Hormuz is so vital to the world economy, okay? That every single one was, okay, if the US invades the Strait of Hormuz and it closes down, what does that mean for our economy and us? Every single country modeled this out. Every country knew that it was a foolhardy endeavor.
Yeah. Yes.
And the US and Trump and this administration did it anyway. Because because for whatever reason, all the gaslighting that we've been doing for years about we're great, we're the best, we're this, we're that, right? Somehow they believe that. They believe that gaslighting. They
But
believe their own bullshit.
yeah.
Well, people like myself were getting criticized saying, we need to change. These are sunk costs. We need to become more agile. We need to look at what we're doing. We need to change these institutions and re-engineer these institutions. We were being told, no, 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 you're a liberal. You have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
It's
Right? No, I'm not a liberal. I'm a business person. Okay? I grew up in business. Okay? Believe it or not, I grew up in business. I grew up working for Fortune 500 investment companies. I worked with Fortune 500 companies all through different industry sectors.
yeah,
Okay? In my time at Arthur Andersen and PwC, okay, I worked at these places. Okay?
right. Yeah.
Every time if they had an endeavor that was started to lose money, And it would usually never come to that. But if they saw that, they would start looking at metrics to either change or dissolve, sell, whatever it was to change course, because losing money was not an option.
Yeah. And speaking of money, and this will piss everybody off when you hear this, and I'm gonna tee this up. I'm gonna have I'll give you a little breakdown, and we'll have Neil sort of explain the logistics of what's going on here. So, Mr. Global, and I don't know if you follow him, you definitely should. He is a formerly in the oil industry, so he has a lot of extensive knowledge about the industry. He got out just after the second term began with Trump, like he saw the writing on the wall. So he's put out a couple of videos just yesterday and the day before about what is happening financially with the oil industry. One of the first things he pointed out was the fact that the government has been shorting, they were shorting oil stocks prior to the war beginning. And the
Oil,
money,
oil futures, not stocks.
not stocks, right?
Future.
Yes, oil futures. They were shorting them days before this whole war began, and there's a rumor they may have been using money from the Treasury, as in our tax dollars, to do this. Then the war begins, and futures go in the opposite direction. So anybody who doesn't understand shorting, you're betting that the market's going to go down. So you sell at a price slightly below the market in order to drive the price down. And then when it gets down to whatever your target is, you buy back at a lower price, return those futures to the bank that you borrowed from. That's usually how you do it. You borrow them and you keep the profits. But when the price doesn't go down and instead skyrockets to, I think we're at now about $110, $120 a barrel, you have problems because you're losing that money. And the house is going to want those futures back. So this is shocking in and of itself. But then it gets even worse because I just saw he posted another video where now they're talking about, I guess it's loaning without paying back our strategic reserves to corporate oil companies. So can you give us your assessment of the whole shorting thing and what's going to happen with this loaning? What's going on?
So it's really interesting. They are continuing to short. So what we're seeing in the United States, right, is, listen, I went to the pump today. Okay. So the pump price today was $3.33 a gallon. Last Sunday I went, right, and it was just a little over $3. 2 weeks ago when I went, it was $2.86. So it's jumped a good, what, 50 cents, since in 2 weeks.
It's
Okay.
259 around the block.
That 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 is a big, big, big jump,
Yeah,
okay,
in such a short
that we're
time.
seeing in such a short time. Basically, what the administration is doing is as prices are going up, they're trying the best thing that the best thing that they've decided to do, right, is to short the stock or short the futures, right? In other words, they're basically selling futures, right, at a much lower price. I believe it's like $80 a barrel, right, in the hopes of driving the price down. Okay. The issue is when you do something like that, it is that at some point in time you have to deliver,
Yes.
okay? And they don't, you may say, well, they have the strategic oil reserve, they can just tap that. But that comes into the second part of what you said about the strategic oil reserve, right? And the fact that they are releasing the strategic oil reserve, but they're not selling those barrels. So they can sell those barrels today for $120 a barrel, right? But what they're doing is this is what we call socialism for the rich, okay? And the rest of us get screwed. So they are going to give those barrels, give, as in get nothing in return, get $0 in return, right? Give those to the oil companies who are then going to turn around and sell them for $120 a barrel. right? Or whatever the current market rate is when those come up. So they are going to make all the money, okay? And the way that the government is trying to do is they're taking our tax dollars through the treasury, right, and shorting or selling, right, futures, right, to try to drive the price down. Okay. Now, for those people not understanding any of that, what the government could do, okay, is they could sell those strategic oil reserve, get the money, and then subsidize, right, our gas prices. So to keep our gas prices low if they wanted to, right? But what they're basically saying is we want to maintain a free market, right? We want to maintain a free market as if any of this is free, right? Like we already paid for the oil in the Strategic Oil Reserve.
Right.
Okay, that's our oil. We already paid for it. And basically the government saying we're going to give it away for free.
Right. To
Fuck you,
corporates.
fuck your feelings. We're going to give it away for free to the corporations. Corporations, they just have to replenish the Strategic Oil Reserve at some point in time in the future
10,
when gas
20 years down the
prices,
road.
right, if gas prices ever drop. This is such bullshit, right? Anybody thinking that this administration gives a shit about you, your gas prices, or any of that shit, they do not. Okay. All they're trying to do is get through the midterms in the hopes of maintaining reasonable gas prices through the midterms so that Republicans don't get completely hammered because gas prices should be somewhere around $4 right now. And they're
Wow.
not, because this administration has decided to play games and gamble our money, our tax dollars in the market. Right?
The futures
This is
market.
the equivalent of the shit that Enron did. That sunk Enron, right?
Yeah.
It's these futures contracts that destroyed Enron at the end of the day. And you don't think that this is the same crap that they're doing to the United States? This is what I've been saying. Extracting the wealth, leaving nothing behind but debt. This is debt to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I checked the what is the debt today? I think the debt is as of last night was 38,902,000,000,000. So we are
How
creeping,
much per
creeping.
person?
Let's see. Let's take a look. Let's pull it up right now.
I like showing that statistic of how much each person owes in debt, because I want to see how many people still complain when they
Oh,
say, "Oh, you owe that."
it jumped. It jumped $3 billion overnight. Actually, in the last 12 hours. Hang on, let me share my screen. There it is. So, 38,905,000,000,000, 104,000,000. Blah blah blah, and just about $114,000 for every single person in America, and I'm pretty sure that is including just everybody counted in the census, whether they're citizens or not. So if
Okay.
we're getting rid of the
So
immigrants, their debt gets to come to us too.
let me ask a question to all our followers, right? Do you have $114,000 to give to the Treasury now? How do you feel about giving the $114,000 to the government? Because that's how much you owe.
That is that is just that is shocking. That is shocking. That's what and understand wars cost a shitload of money. And at the rate they are blowing through our munitions with this whole Iran thing. I mean, I could see us like I said in just the last. I mean, I'm up in the middle of the night. I was in the last 12 hours, it jumped $3 billion. So
Because what we're witnessing is people selling off their dollars, right? Countries selling off their dollars, people moving to the yuan. So one of the things that was announced by Iran was that they were willing to allow certain countries, right, to transport, their cargo ships, not not oil tankers, right? No tankers, right? They're not allowing any tankers, but their cargo ships. They would allow the cargo ships to be transported through the strait. There were a couple of countries that were willing to pay them to do that, right? To make that deal with them. There was one condition to the deal, right? That the money would be the yuan, that they
Ooh.
would only accept the yuan. They would not accept US dollars.
And I think it goes
So,
further that, they also those countries have to basically stop dealing with us and, getting us out of the in the terms of, how allowing us to have military bases there. So they have to they're pushing people away. You don't think so?
yeah, well, no, I think they backed off of that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think they backed off of that, like, because I mean, for the most part, a lot of our bases are destroyed in the Middle East anyway. Switzerland denied us access to their airspace for 2 cargo ships that we were transporting to the Middle East, so, you have kinda that already happening,
Okay.
but, I mean, Iran wants to get paid, and they don't wanna be paid in US dollars, so they're basically telling people, "You wanna do business with us, we're only transacting in the yuan, in the Chinese yuan." The Chinese are coming out of this looking like sitting pretty.
Yeah.
Like, they have not fired one missile. They haven't fired anything. They've literally just been sitting there watching all this develop and raking in the money because now everybody is moving to transact in the yuan. Everybody,
And,
you
like,
know?
can you just remind our audience what happens when the US dollar is no longer the world reserve currency?
Great Depression. Think of Great Depression, but magnified a millionfold. We honestly don't know. It's never had. We have never seen a world reserve currency fall. It's never happened in the entirety of civilization. It's never happened, because you got to remember before the dollar, it was the gold standard. We used gold, right? Like I mean, like there really was no currency like oil. I mean, that was really a once in a generation deal that you saw. And now everybody's moving to the yuan, and we're seeing it real time as country by country, one by one, through BRICS, which is a consortium. If you don't know what BRICS is, look it up. It's a consortium of countries, Iran being one of them, Russia, China, Brazil, that got together and said, we are going to do business. We are going to sell oil through an exchange it's a Russian exchange using a Chinese currency. This way, one country cannot do what the United States has done for many, many years, right? Which is impose their will upon others, right? Now it goes along multiple countries, right? So therefore it's actually a little bit more democratic than what it has been, because now you have a consortium of countries really invested in one currency, right? But you can't transact in that one currency without the other
Interesting.
countries, right? Because it's not like you're just transacting in the one and you're exchanging one for another. It has to go through an intermediary, which is the Russian exchange, which they've been building for many, many years. Just like one of the things about the US that makes the US is that the exchange is right. It's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, right?
Right.
Like things go through. It's not just the dollar, it's the exchange,
Yes.
right? It's the intermediary. It's who holds the notes,
Right.
right?
Right.
Who holds the debt? Is there an independent arbiter who holds the debt to ensure that these contracts get enforced? Remember, when you're buying something, it's a contract,
Yes. Right.
okay? So trying to make that clear. It's not like you're just like, okay, I'm gonna take an oil tanker and drive it to you, and then when I get to you, you give me one. No, that's not how it works. Like you buy a contract, and then when you get delivery of the contract, then you pay on the contract, right? Like that's really how things work in the world. And what we're seeing is that the US's power is getting greatly diminished by Trump and his war. I mean,
And
it's driving everybody to brink.
it's actually been happening since the beginning of this administration with Doge breaking down USAID, right? That is such people don't realize just how important that whole, agency was and what it did for our soft power in the world and for the strength of the dollar. It also, we were sending food, medicine. It kept our farmers employed, right? Just which I think it was 0.5% of the entire budget of our tax dollars went to farmers and among other things where they grew food. We used to grow surplus food. It's the reason why our food is so affordable. We had surplus food. And so the surplus would go overseas to help these impoverished nations, and it would allow us to have a little bit of influence. And in exchange, maybe they would allow us to build a military base on their land or something, or give us some access to some of their resources. We give them clean water. We give them medicine and help them. So it was a handshaking thing, and Doge destroyed that, pulled all that money back. Hundreds of thousands of people have since died, so they don't really like us anymore. And so all of this, little by little by little bit, has been chipping away at the U.S. power, or no, the U.S.'s power and influence throughout the world. And I think that's been the plan all along. And now this war and how the dollar is about to sink is sort of the final nail in the coffin. If I didn't know it, I'm going to say it. Someone once said, I read somewhere months ago, maybe even last year, that Trump has been acting like a Russian asset. He's been an asset for Russia and China at this point. This is devastating.
Listen, I've said it many, many times. If you go back to Putin's writings back in the 90s, I mean, like, the guy wrote books. I mean, the guy, like, believe it or not, like, I mean, we can make fun of the guy all we want. The guy is a brilliant, brilliant man, and he understands economics, okay, and economic theory, and he understood, all right, the dominance that the dollar played, okay, in American greatness, and what we consider to be American greatness. And he outlined a plan to really get rid of it, to eliminate it. And not for nothing, the plan, like,
It seems to be
it,
working.
like, if you, like, seriously, go back and read his book, you will see his plan is actually happening now. Exactly what he said that he wanted is actually happening. There's only one difference. One difference was he didn't want the US dollar as the world reserve currency. He actually wanted a currency at the World Bank. He wanted the World Bank current to be the dominant currency, to be the reserve currency. He wanted one world currency, right? And this one world currency, believe it or not, actually comes from Adolf Hitler. Not to scare anybody, right? Not to be like, oh, blah blah blah, but it, again, you go back to Hitler's writings, okay? He The reason that he went ballistic in Europe was he felt that the way to create a working economy, he was a globalist, and he said we need to have one world currency, okay? And that currency should be German,
Right.
right? Not for nothing. That's what he said, right? And that's what his plan was to create a one world economy, one world currency, okay? And then you had, right, another disciple of Hitler, which was Putin, who came along and he said, yes, we should have a one world currency, but it shouldn't. Having seen what the U.S. did with that, with the dollar, right? Because
Yes.
that really was one world currency. It was a reserve currency. So everybody had to transact in the dollar. Okay. Seeing that one world currency, He said he thought that the currency should be under the, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, or the International Monetary Fund. Sorry, I said the World Bank, but International Monetary Fund, and that way it would be a democratic body in charge of the currency, and therefore you wouldn't have sanctions. Like, he saw all the flaws, right, that Hitler didn't see with the US. And that's when he made a deal with China and Iran, right? Creating BRICS.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
we're
that was a little long-winded. My
no, but
apologies.
it's an important thing because it ties into everything we talked about in this whole episode. Um, and how the war is likely to bring about this change in world reserve currency much faster than we even talked about a month ago.
So can I just say, all right, the reason why I personally am so fascinated with economics, okay, and I understand I'm not an expert in any means, right? Like, in any means, I've read a couple of books. That's pretty much the extent of it. Um,
Hey,
but
that makes you
to
more
if you
knowledgeable than a lot of people.
right, to if you look at any problem, okay, all you need to do is look at who's profiting,
Yeah.
okay? That's it. It's basic economics, right? Like, you can start talking about social issues and you can start talking about this and you can start talking about that, right? But at the end of the day, it all comes down to economics.
Yes.
Everything. Everything in the world, everything in your life, no matter what it is, there's an economic component to it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay? You wanna have a dog, the first thing you're gonna ask is, "Can we afford to have a dog? How much is it gonna cost? What are my monthly expenses going to be? Oh, I wanna go buy this shirt. Oh, well, how much is the shirt? Do I have money in my budget to buy that shirt?" Like, everything is formulated around some type of economics. And for us to ignore that, for us to say, these are bad people, okay, I know plenty of bad people. W- what is the goals? Can we get to the end of our goal? Is our goal attainable? There are certain logical steps that need to be asked first. And I think I said this on our last show when I was talking about AI. It's not enough to just say we can do a thing.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be there to ask the question, should we do the thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right because that's another aspect of economics that's going to seriously impact us. So now we lose the dollar, and then we have AI coming in and taking. We've already converted from a manufacturing nation from going back decades to a more service based nation, right? So the few manufacturing jobs that we have are mostly automated, and now we have AI coming in and taking those service-based jobs. And that's everything from, telemarketing and customer service on up to legal jobs, secretarial assistants, clerical stuff, um, medical medical technology. We're seeing now, I don't know, what's his name? Elon Musk wants to have freaking robot doctors. I mean, they're looking at having automation replace us a lot, and they're saying that the impacts would be hit within the next 10 years, and yet we're already experiencing it right now. I think that's going to happen much sooner, and so we're in trouble,
I
folks.
got a question. I got a question for you. Dollar is no longer the reserve currency. These multinational corporations that run the United States all of a sudden decide to say, well, we're not going to accept the dollar for goods and service in exchange for goods and services. What do Americans do then? What
Uh,
happens if these billionaire corporations say we'll only accept Bitcoin? We're only going to accept our currency?
That's a good question. And if the dollar
Okay.
is severely devalued, what is that Bitcoin going to cost per 1 Bitcoin versus $1?
How do you buy a Bitcoin?
I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why so many are buying Bitcoin now.
I'm only asking these questions because these are worst case scenarios. I don't know if we'll reach that point, but
I think we
you
will.
know, I I heard I forgot which one it was. It was one of those billionaire assholes
Just one of
talking.
those.
And they want to take us back to times of company towns. They want to basically get rid of government altogether, right? And then essentially divide and subdivide the United States up, and then put themselves in charge of given areas, right? And then say you can only transact in their currency,
I've seen
right?
that scenario. I've seen that.
Right. And that's all. I mean, if you read Project 2025, that's really where it's taken us. So the question is what does that look like here in the United States?
Feudalism,
Right.
neo-feudalism, where
What
you
does that
have
look like for us as individuals?
oh, it's slavery. Yeah. In
Yes.
fact, it's interesting. A couple of months ago, Neil and I did a segment regarding. It's titled "Own Nothing, Pay Forever." Look that episode up. And it was following the World Economic Forum, and a topic that came up, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, regarding the billionaires of the world basically deciding that they want to turn the world, not just the United States, the world from an ownership society where we own our homes and we own our cars and we own these things to a rentals and or slash subscription society where we rent our homes and we lease our cars and we rent our telephones and all these different things, and you could see it happening already. And I just this week a couple of videos landed on my feed regarding this very topic, and it just turns out that these rental neighborhoods already exist, particularly in Texas. And More Perfect Union did a great in-depth investigation about this, and I think they gave the name. I think it's backed by BlackRock, but there's a different name to the company that built all these houses, and they're not for sale. They're for rent. And people who have moved in have seen their rent jumped astronomically within a short period of time. And those that were buying them, like they set it up. I think they initially set it up where you buy the homes from them. They provide the financing, they provide their warranty, and so you're basically a slave to this corporation that were selling these houses, and they built the homes with the cheapest materials possible, including cardboard in the walls, which ended up creating mold. And
Mhm.
then they put little bylines within the mortgages that said they could basically change, that the rates were basically adjustable and they could change them at any time. And so many people were complaining that their payments jumped by hundreds of dollars in less than a year, or maybe a year or 2 years time since they bought the homes, and the homes are covered with mold. And this is already happening. They don't give it, as he said, as Neil has said many times, and we've said over and over again, these billionaires don't give a shit about us. We are expendable. We are now a commodity that they can use and abuse. And just look at how they treat children in those files, in the e-files. That's all we're going to say is e-files, so we don't get rhythmed out. So this is where we are. I'd love to hear what you're thinking, what folks are thinking. I do have a question. Should we all be buying the Yuan, stocking up on the Yuan for the future? Yeah, 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 yeah. I see you nodding. You say that is that what you're doing? Stocking up. Yeah, It's not a bad idea because that's about to become it's sad. It's a little heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking to see, that we're watching the end of an empire, the world's strongest empire, in the most despicable way possible.
Here's what it shows us, really in a more deep-rooted way, is that, we were never what we thought we were.
Yeah,
Never. This has nothing to do with Trump.
yeah,
This
I
has nothing to do with Trump. This has everything to do with everybody leading up to Trump, okay? This shows you that everything the left said about the right and everything the right said about the left was entirely true, okay? That our politicians did not serve us, but they serve the billionaire class, and that was it.
yeah.
Okay. For the last 50 years or so, 50, 60 years, right? They've done everything they can to ensure our destruction, right? Including all the money that they spent in the DOD, which was not on our troops. Okay. It was all towards consultants, right? Telling us to buy this, right? I mean, our drones cost what, 150 to $250,000. Meanwhile, they're using $30 to $50,000 drones,
$20,000
right?
drones that they can build up to
Right.
500 a day.
Right, right, and you're gonna tell me we weren't overcharged? Like, seriously, dude, come on, right? You know, this has been a grift from the get-go, and everybody's been in on it, okay?
Except for us.
We'll give you a nice contract, you donate to our campaigns, and that's what it's been, a revolving door, a cesspool from every administration. I personally don't want to hear from the Clintons. I don't want to hear from the Bushes. I don't want to hear from the Obamas. I don't want to hear from any of them anymore. Okay? I'm done. We need new leadership because our old leadership has failed so fucking miserably in every fucking way imaginable. I'm tired of hearing from these fucking people. Go away. Let's get a new brand of leadership. And it certainly ain't going to be Gavin Newsom, and it ain't going to be Pritzker, and it ain't going to be, whoever else, Rubio, you know, Cruz, any of these assholes. All got to fucking go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I got all New York there when I said gotta go.
Gotta
They all
go.
gotta go.
Yo, you gotta go. You know what I'm
They all gotta
saying?
go. Y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta fucking go.
Let me tell you. Um, Folks, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. We're gonna keep watching. I think I'm gonna try and end on a positive note and remind people that, you know what? You need to speak up. March 28th is the next No Kings protest. There are going to be protests all over the region. There are bigger ones in the cities like New York, and, if you want to go down there, New York, Philadelphia, Washington. Now may be the time to really march on Washington. I don't know, but whatever you can do, this is the time to stand up because you cannot show any fear now. They need to know just how serious this is. This is an existential threat to us as a society, to our society, regardless of whether you're a Republican, Democrat, MAGA Republican, leftist, centrist, whatever. This affects every American, every person living here, and it will it will take generations to recover from if we really collapse. Okay, maybe you are just.
You're so
I'm
positive.
trying to be positive.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can give the positive a try. Join Denise and Neil on Tuesday, all right, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, for our St. Patrick's Day celebration, right?
We're
Our
gonna have a lot
live
of beer.
event, right? live event, right? Join us with your green drinks, okay? And how about that as leaving us on a happy note? You get to hear us live on Tuesday. There we go.
That's it. All right.
That's it.
All
That's
right.
my happy note.
Try to be positive, folks. Spend some time with your family, watch a movie, read a book, but be here with us Tuesday evening for our live event. For as usual for our Tuesday live stream, 8 p.m. Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day, while Neil is floating around over here. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping to build the algorithm. And tell us what you're thinking right now. It means a lot. We'll see you soon. Take care, guys. Love you.
Peace out.